if you're worth your weight in gold, if you should be in this industry, if you should make the cut, if you should be a part of the toughest conversations, then you're doing it yourself. That degree decision is a buyer's journey, and takes a lot of informing and a lot of trust. Tight little funnel is your entire business, and these little use case is actually a reflection of your entire business. It's why your SEO isn't working. It's why your email marketing isn't working. It's why your salespeople struggle to close.
Zac Gregg, welcome to Eat Coffee with Experts.
Good afternoon, Austin. Good to meet you.
Yeah, it's morning for me, afternoon for us, man. Things are changing like crazy. At your agency, you guys shifted from like broad spectrum, helping all different types of niches, all different types of clients. About 5 years ago, you decided to focus on universities, mostly universities. Can you tell me, like, what was the catalyst for that shift?
Yeah, I think there's a big shift right now, and I think it started 5 years ago where we were doing primarily B2B, and we were doing a ton of e-commerce and a whole bunch of universities. And I think what we started to see is that as AI started to really enter the equation here, is that trying to be found for everything, trying to add expertise, you're going to have to get deeper, and you're going to have to go deeper. Not only are the clients and the schools that we're helping getting very niched out, but so did we have to as an agency. And I'll tell you, we took a look at a couple different agencies that we saw that were very broad, doing incredible things, building out pages and pages of content on all sorts of different industries. And we started trying to follow that model because for a long time it worked. And what we realized is that it's impossible to keep up all of that content, and it's impossible to be experts and understand who you're going to hire and what you're going to do. And the world of generalization, general agency just got harder and harder to support from a managing partner perspective. And we started to ask ourselves questions. Who are we? Where do we fit best? And we have an 80-20 rule here now. We spend 80% of our time marketing to universities and schools, and about 20% of our time to our traditional B2B audience, business services, manufacturers, things like that. And so we still maintain some of that business, but 80% universities, and been the best decision we ever made.
Yeah. And for those who are starting out with an agency thinking that, the agency owner's journey starts out with, okay, let me be a freelancer and take on whatever projects that I'm currently good at or currently working on. And it's kind of like, hey, I'll take whatever comes my way, right? And whoever those people refer to me. And then as you grow, you start to have that realization of, man, I can't be an expert in everything. What unique challenges come up when you're dealing with universities, and how are those challenges different from, let's say, traditional B2B?
It's a very similar buyer cycle to B2B, which is why we found it where we still find it to be so complementary, right? Like people aren't going to a checkout counter and deciding, oh, geez, I just want to have a degree. That degree decision is a buyer's journey, and takes a lot of informing and a lot of trust. And so it was very similar to the B2B buyer journey. But what we're finding in university world is just, it's so different, right? You and I have spoken a little bit about this, but when we talk about undergrad, right? You're talking about schools. Harvard doesn't need help getting applications for their undergrad programs at all.
Right.
But if they go out there and they start AI degree for, executive learning, or they have some professor who wants to do cybersecurity, a master's in cybersecurity, and that's not an area where they've had a lot of applications in the past. This becomes the area where marketing agencies are starting to see a lot of lead gen opportunities, and this is where schools need it. So it's kind of funny when you're dealing with undergrad, which we deal with a lot. You're dealing with branding, you're dealing with messaging, you're dealing with changing campaigns and those types of things. When you're dealing with the online schools, when you're dealing with the master's and grad school stuff, which is where most of our leads come in, you're dealing with people who are struggling to put butts in seats. One of the greatest programs we work for is Semester at Sea, which we all know. And they literally need to fill a voyage every 3 months. And they have lifelong learners, they have undergrad students, they have grad students, and it's incredible. It really gives you the view of like, these schools need to put butts in seats. They start a
Mm,
program, they start a department, they start some sort of degree type,
mhm,
and next thing you know, it's like we created this awesome idea. Now, how do we get people to find it?
mm,
And that's been where Vital is finding a lot of success, because these professors and the people coming up with these degree types or these programs, oftentimes they're thinking of them in a silo, and
mm,
they're very unique in what they want to accomplish.
mhm,
And then once they become unique, how do they get somebody to find that unique program? Everyone wants an MBA. Everyone wants an undergrad degree. Not everyone wants a CFA or some sort of unique degree. And so you got to find the degree that it's like, show
mm.
people why it's better, and that's a marketing problem that we love solving.
Yeah, I can see the similarities. It's almost like your client is the brand, but then you're helping them market different products almost that they release. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of similarities there.
Nailed it.
Yeah. So along with those lines, Vital Designs helps, you said a majority of your business, or let's say 50% of the business is dev and web design and branding on that side. When you're looking at a new client, is there a point of entry typically, that like a route that you'll always go to kind of lay the foundation so that you can build all the lead generation and everything around? Like, is it the website design? Is it even a step back to say, what are the color schemes and the brand voice? We need to have that strategy session first. Like, what is the first step when people come to into your ecosystem?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's like, as a sales guy, I pride myself on being on that first call, because it's too often that people are coming to us for something, but that's not really what they need.
Yeah.
A million times, right now, one of our best entry points is through paid. People
Mm,
coming to us saying, our we know paid works, but it's not working for us, or we're struggling with our SEO, we've fallen off the map, or we think we need a website. And you'll get into the, why do you need a website? Oh, we need more leads. And it's like, or people looking for more leads, but what they really need is a website. So
mm,
we have a pretty standard process on the sales calls, and during the sales funnel, we try to understand what they think their problems are. We trust but verify. Oftentimes what we'll find, you can go both ways. What we'll find is the reason your paid isn't working is because all the reasons why paid can't work. You're actually like likely to fail if you manage it yourself and all this stuff. But oftentimes it's around trust, messaging,
mm,
and so we have to go back and we have to take a look at it. Like, how are you defining your products? How are your landing pages look and feel? Is it a pricing problem, or is this a trust problem? And you'd be surprised how many times it ends up being a trust problem,
mm,
and that you just don't have a developed enough brand, and you're not satiating the empathy that the client has, and that's a branding issue. Sometimes
mm.
with pay per click, it really is a tight little funnel, right? You can just work on the campaign content
Yeah.
and landing page content, which makes the whole engagement really good. But one of the things we love about paid is that you have this expedited buyer's journey, and what you can do with that is, now you're like, okay, we solved all these problems in this tight little funnel, but that tight little funnel is your entire business, and these little use case is actually a reflection of your entire business. It's why your SEO isn't working. It's why your email marketing isn't
Mm,
working. It's why your salespeople struggle to close. It's why your sales cycles are so long, and it's why so many conversations don't close. So
mm,
conversion rate optimization with schools, we're talking about, people, you can get people to your degree page, but you can't get them to close. Well, why is that?
mm,
One, B2B, it's, you can get them there and you get engaging conversations, but you had the wrong buyer type, or you
mhm,
had wrong expectations around how far down the buyer's journey these people were. And so
mm.
I hate to say that people don't know what they want, but it's very clear that sometimes they see the problem as one thing and it ends up being another.
I think it was Steve Jobs that was a proponent of the customer doesn't know what they want. We have to be the forerunners. We have to be the spear point and create something first and then create the demand for it. How much of that sort of methodology where you're like, okay, when I bring on a client, we know what the brand should be like as opposed to, what the client thinks the brand should be. How much of your methodology at Vital Design is like consulting versus fulfilling, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we always try to get people to one of the things take a step back at Vital, we started as a brand agency 25 years ago before the web truly existed,
Mm,
certainly as the way it does today. Um, and I think back then you tied everything back to, branding issues and today I think when you talk about consulting or servicing today, everything's so data and analytic focused. And what
mm,
our goal is to say we can do whatever you ask, but we'd love some sort of third party arbiter in the conversation. That tends to be data and analytics, right? And so
yeah.
with data analytics, we have this thing where we can show them oftentimes like we're doing this, but it's not working. And that helps us to become more of consultants when we're being asked to be doers. And we always can be that person too who has the wrong idea. And so
Mhm.
that that ultimate judge of the data and the analytics is what's made marketing so much fun. I say take us back to the beginning because I don't think I really enjoyed marketing when it was like subjective, right? And
Yeah.
I remember we were a small business back then, and we were actually servicing small businesses, and the owner types we would get would have all these subjective things. I love this, and you'd be like, "Really, you love this? I hated it." But you'd present 5 designs, and this was the last one you thought they'd choose, and they chose it. And
Huh.
then those types of things. That was painful,
Yeah.
as a business owner to put your life into something and have somebody hate it
Mm,
and when you loved it and you thought it was perfectly representative of the discovery you had gone through and the intake process you'd gone through, it was like
mhm.
it was painful.
Yeah.
And it was only when like you don't know the best and I don't know the best and your customer knows the best. And
Yeah.
so I think that's when the marketing game became fun, and now we use that as a way to like, hey, I hear what you're saying, and we think maybe differently, but we don't have to butt heads. We'll do this, and we'll see if the math works. And
Mm,
whether it's cost of customer acquisition or it's engagement rates or it's bounce rates, or there's always a way to measure open rates, whatever it is. And it's really the fun of it now. It's a
yeah.
game, a math game, and it's a creative game. And they get to like stack on top of each other. You said the thing about Steve Jobs, and what I think about when I think of that type of thing is like, but Steve Jobs knew you wanted a computer.
Mm,
Like,
mhm.
as much as he was trying to tell you what you needed, he knew you wanted a computer, and he was gonna change what computers looked like and how
Mhm.
you interacted with them, but he knew the baseline of how they were gonna be used and what they were, and I
Mhm.
think that that's, like, in a good way, an agency can be like that, right? We're both aware that you need more leads, and you wanna use marketing to get those leads. You're probably not coming to us because you got a sales team that you're using.
Mhm.
And so, how do I get you to use that better? And he was great at throwing darts close to the bullseye.
Mm.
And I like to think a good agency is the same way, where it's like, cool, you want a computer? Now I'm going to build something for you that's like going to be right next to the bullseye on day one. And that's where the value of an agency is, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and you also have the benefit of, like you said, the data. You can look across other clients, you can get a better idea of the industry as a whole as it relates to your new client, and then using that data to back up your case. It's always helpful to have that, like you said, a third party arbitrator. You said something about trust and how likely a lot of the times that's an issue for conversion. That's one of the, if we're looking at traditional KPIs in marketing, it would be click through rates or views or sometimes likes, and then those, kind of dipped. Now it's more so let's actually understand what it's like to be a partner for our clients as opposed to just a service provider. So we need to understand, like, okay, what revenue is actually coming from our campaigns, and that's one of the most important KPIs. At least that's what I'm hearing. But I'm curious if trust is one of the big factors, which we know it is, especially with LLMs and AI and being visible on those. How do you measure trust? Do you have a mechanism?
I mean, I think conversion rate, you don't measure trust, but you measure projects in which you're working on trust factors and how those affect conversion rate, right? So maybe answering your question, I may not be, but like if we see that you don't have links to a page, no third parties are saying this company is like, service pages, rare, it's
Mhm.
hard to build links to service pages. But when you have links and aggregators say these guys are the best at this service or for this
Mm.
industry, especially in this world of AI search, it's pretty much everything, right?
Yeah.
Now, also how people use your website and does it convert? I think that's a big,
Mm.
big influencer of AI. AI is, in the AI snippets, I think the LLMs are able to see the performance of the websites that they're
Mhm.
referring. So I think a big part of it comes from link building, and whether it's SEO or LLMs, certainly the performance of the website. Well, how do you measure that? It's through conversion rate. So if you're working on trust signals, whether it be putting a security blurb below a radio button or a button, putting, that a form and saying that we're not going to use,
Mm.
any information here will up your conversion rate. And that's a small trust factor. Putting a logo bar of clients you work for can be another way to test trust. And another way can be, put a video from the owner, on that landing page. I mean, these are old school tactics at this point, but
Mm.
that's how you trust is you add on one page an idea that you have and test it against a page that doesn't have that idea. And you
Mm.
have to bucket those things into trust factors. You're not putting those logo bars on websites because they're pretty. You're
Yeah.
putting them on there because you think that's going to change the trust that somebody has for you. So it's you get it.
Mhm. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of talk about Reddit and Google reviews and other platforms, Yelp, because I have yet to see like a report or some substantial data, and maybe I just don't have access to it or haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it exists, that LLMs are considering those reviews much more heavily than like traditional Google searches or traditional SEO. You know, is there a service that you offer your clients that is based on that trust building sort of initiatives? Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things we're offering our clients, and number one, we don't care how we rank globally or our website ranks or what anything says. What we are going to go after is your goal is to sell this service to this industry.
Mhm.
Okay, let's do the keyword research. Let's figure out whether the AI snippet is serving up or whether there's traditional SEO results there. And once you get there, what's great about AI is it tells you exactly how the resources it used to make this
Mm.
referral or to make this referral. And then once you go in there, you're like, this is easy. This is way easier than SEO because you're like, cool. It used these seven, aggregate blog posts or use these seven articles. And then you go in and you talk to the webmasters at those places, or if it's some sort of citation service, whatever it is, you now have full access. And so we try to take a very targeted approach. Like we know you don't
Mm.
care if your website's ranking, you care if this page that gets you
Mhm.
leads for this service. Well, okay, let's reverse engineer that. Still is very same old way of let's do the keyword research. Let's put in those keywords. Let's then see what the results say. Sometimes it's a video. Sometimes it's an AI snippet. Sometimes it's a set of service pages, blog posts, whatever it may be. Now we know if we can rank for this. Now we got to send trust signals to that page.
Mhm.
And with AI, it's very clear what they're using to come up with that. Now, do you
Mm.
know exactly how much they're weighting each one of those? That's where our experts have better tools than I think, a typical guy in a marketing department at one of these. We have all sorts of tools we're using to crack open what we think is the weighting of this and
Mhm.
what we're seeing. And we also, you said it before, we have platform like learning. We start to see when we do well on this site and this site and this site, it's impacting our AI, showing up in AI snippets more than this site or this site, or we don't have enough data on these things. So let's not approach those first. We know this works, those types of things. Again, using an agency, getting to the people who throw closest to the bullseye early on so that, you know, you're getting results faster, and you're getting what you paid for.
You mentioned that you have a big team. Vital has, correct me if I'm wrong, over 100 employees now. You
Yep.
guys have scaled over the last decade or more. I'm curious how, if keeping a group like that together and humming at the same rhythm or humming the same tune at the same time, do you have internal core values or guiding principles, or what sort of alignment mechanisms do you have on a culture standpoint to keep everybody running in the same direction?
Have you ever heard of EOS, Austin?
It's
Anybody
funny,
ever?
yeah, I have. I've heard it twice today.
No way. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
small world.
yeah,
Once you hear it, you see it on that. It's on. They advertise on Sirius.
yeah,
There,
yeah,
the integrators or implementers are everywhere. A lot of
mhm,
business consultants have started to implement, use this system. EOS is incredible. It really has taught us how to row together towards a common goal. But answers your question, yeah, core values, the number one thing that we use in our hiring. We use it at our reviews. Core values used to be so empty to us before EOS, but EOS helped us understand how to use our traction, kind of how we get traction as a company to move towards our goals in a common way. We used to have a problem of everyone here was awesome. They were all nerds. They all wanted what was best, but our communication and our all going in the same direction at the same time was so off that people would put together monumental efforts and they would hit the cutting room floor around here all the time. It wasn't
mm,
until we started to use EOS and implement the our different kind of problem solving tools within EOS, our org chart, our core values, all sorts of different like tools that they use, our rock setting, our scorecards. Now they all
mhm,
work together. We're all kind of like, okay, does this impact this? Does this ladder up to that? And if it
mm,
doesn't, we don't do it. And we certainly don't do it in that quarter because we've learned the hard way that too many people doing too many things going in too many directions causes a lot of frustration.
mhm,
We don't hit our goals. We end up burning people out. So
mhm,
yes, it's been fun. We work hard. We work less hard, but we work smarter, and people are generally happier. And so, and core values are an incredible part of that. So, big fan of EOS. It's a little bit of a cult. It's a little bit of Kool-Aid drinkers, but for us, it was perfect. And I say that specifically addresses hitting ceilings
mhm,
where we couldn't break through before. Now, with that singular focus, similar vision, using the tools, we are able to cruise through ceilings as well as build enterprise. And those ceilings lead to enterprise value, right? So, whether you want to sell your business, which isn't a goal
mm,
of ours, or you want to just create enterprise value, maximize profits, build a company that's worth selling to somebody, EOS just like gets you into shape. And it's like having a trainer who has all the answers.
yeah, I love that. It's almost like I hate to put it this way, but it's kind of like a certification or a trust signal, if you will, for a business if it were to go to market, like you said. A buyer might look at that and say, "Oh, you guys run on EOS, okay? Obviously, you've read the book and you've done the program. You drank the Kool Aid. All right, all right, all right. Let's go."
Yep. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
network. It's that's
yeah,
you're 100% right. And they know like you're ahead of the game. I'm not dealing with
yeah.
just like a crackpot entrepreneur, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. As we kind of wrap up here, Greg, I want to know, obviously Vital has had incredible success and growth. If you think back to one of those points where you were talking about like a ceiling, right? What was a time that you can remember where you guys were hitting a plateau or a ceiling, and what kind of shift did you make to get you out of that rut or kind of ramp that trajectory back up?
Yeah, I think I would say there's been two major inflection points. One of which was EOS, right?
Mhm.
Great way to came along. We were at the $10 million mark, felt like we were here, and we needed, we've managed to now almost double that. So, and that was just, I think we started EOS 3.5 years ago. So it was incredible. And then the goals we've
Mm.
set and the things
Wow.
we're doing. So that's pretty awesome. I will tell you, like, this is like the secret story of like marketing companies that should be a little bit we didn't used to market ourselves. So
Mm.
I think a
Mhm.
key inflection point of Vital was maybe 14 years ago, 15 years ago, when we used our excess utility not to build better process, better systems, better tools, but to market ourselves. And since we were good at marketing, we found a lot of people started coming to us because they were finding us for the things we did. And that was because we were purposefully marketing ourselves. I can't tell you how many times these days people tell us like we came to you because when we put in what we were looking for, you were at the top of the search engines, or we saw your paid ad and it was on point, or we came to your website and we loved it, or we read your articles, or we're subscribed to your newsletter, or I listened to the podcast you were on. All of those things are things that like marketers are horrible at, and we were horrible
Yeah.
at. So I think,
Yeah.
that's the cobbler's son, the eat your own dog food, the take your
Yep.
own medicine is like, how easy is that? Like, if I could talk to any agency owner, it's like, guys, if you're worth your weight in gold, if you should be in this industry, if you should make the cut, if you should be a part of the toughest conversations, then you're doing it yourself, because we'll tell any client we have, we're our own sandbox. Although we have
Mhm.
platform like learning, we may have 150 clients just in our paid media department, and we're learning from them all. We're at the spear's edge with with our own paid media. I tell people all the time, we spend about $20,000 a month in paid. We spend about $15,000 a month in our own organic marketing methodology. We spend about $5,000 just kind of what we call P&U, projects and updates for sales, HR, kind of not the lead gen, and not the organic marketing. So
Mhm.
yeah, so we're putting in 40K a month into our own marketing, and you don't do that level of spend if you don't know how to make money on it, and you're not getting a return on investment. You don't understand your cost of customer acquisition. All the stuff we're asked to guide our clients on, we're doing it for ourselves.
Mm.
That was a huge breakthrough for us and changed our trajectory forever.
Yeah. And I love to hear that. I talk to a lot of agency owners and it seems that they have similar stories. Whenever I bring up like their own website, like, hey, by the way, I was on your website and I saw this, that, and the other. And it's almost the same response for everybody. They're like, oh, I know, we've been meaning to clean that up. And it's really difficult for us to sing our own praises, but you're a walking, talking example of what happens when you walk the talk and do what you do for your client, for yourself. Yeah. Congrats on all your success, Zach. I love to see the growth of the agency. The future of marketing is happening, and you guys are obviously on the forefront. Where can people learn more about Vital Design and also about Zach Gregg?
Yeah, I mean, my personal brand it pales in comparison to Vital's brand, and you can just go to Vital's website and you'll meet the people, and we've got some prolific marketers part of our team, and in the education space, we have an education newsletter for enrollment marketing that is just like cutting edge. We're dissecting universities and in online schools, marketing, breaking into the secrets behind SNHU, Arizona State on, ASU Online, Purdue Global,
Mm,
trying to figure it out, teach people the tricks. And yeah, that's an incredible newsletter to be a part of, and building a huge subscribership and that type of stuff. The best place to find me is at a poker table on.
I love that. Well, thank you again for joining us,
Yeah.
and we'll talk to you next time.
Pleasure, Austin. Exciting to be a part of your show, and keep up the great work.
Thank you very much.